Hello YouTube, this is RL coming to you again from my channel. Once again, I have a new topic for you today. But before I get to that topic, I'm going to introduce once again my special guest, CK.
Hello, everybody.
So you're probably thinking that CK is going to be here all the time on my channel. I wouldn't mind that at all if he wants to be.
Yes, especially when we're not talking about COVID.
No, we're
But
not
that's
actually. We're
another
not
story,
talking. We're
right?
not talking. But this will be a not a COVID-19 topic and not a pizza topic. So we're hitting new ground. So today we will be talking about open world video games. I'm really excited to get started. Are you excited?
I'm excited. I enjoyed 3D games, especially on my PlayStation. As for open world, I'd say I'd have to go back to SNES. I never really owned one. I didn't get a Nintendo actually until everybody had N64. I think when N64 came out, I got my first Nintendo. So I was always behind. We were talking about open world and 3D games. Yes, there weren't really quote unquote 3D games on the Super NES, but they were 3D like inspired games. Yeah, as for actual 3D based vectored games, it would have been PlayStation for me. I was a PlayStation guy from the get and have always been and will always be a PlayStation guy.
I'll tell you a story, CK. I actually had a vendetta against Sony. One of the last games I got for the Sega Genesis was called NHL Hockey Nights. It was made by Sony. It was such a terrible hockey game. It was the first hockey game to have multiple camera angles. So I was so excited. I said, oh, multiple camera angles. Wow, I never seen that before. It was such a terrible game. I had a vendetta against Sony the first few years. So when the PlayStation came out, and I went to Sega Saturn. Saturn went belly
Oh
up.
my
Yeah,
gosh,
I know.
no
I got
way.
hooked. I got hooked up with the commercials. They said we're gonna give you 4 games with the Saturn, and I was like, "This is
Oh
awesome."
my
And I remember my father
gosh.
telling me it looks like a scam. It seemed like they were desperate, and of course my father was
Yeah,
right. And I said, "No, no, you're wrong." And I was a huge Sega guy, and I wanted to continue with Sega. I
like
remember
that.
one day going to a store and asking, "Do you have any Sega Saturn games?" And the guy told me, "What's a Sega Saturn?" I said, "Fuck! The fuck!" I was so pissed. And then I gave up gaming for a year because there was no more games. You couldn't find any. Eventually, I had to get a PlayStation. I was considering should I get a PlayStation or a Nintendo 64, but I didn't want to go
Right.
back to cartridges. I
That's right.
felt going to cartridges was like a step back. So I said, okay, I'll end my feud with Sony. And after that, I became a PlayStation, diehard PlayStation. Because then I played
Sony
I
advocate.
played Metal Gear
Nice.
Solid, and I was like, it's the first game I ever played. It had like cutscenes. I was like, I couldn't believe how amazing that game was. It was just so amazing compared to everything else I had played up until that point. And then I got Silent Hill, and I was like, PlayStation was,
But yeah, I guess getting into the PlayStation, I mean, for both of us, was that dive into the 3D realm, the
yeah.
3D world. The world where you can move around, in 360 degrees horizontally and look up and look down and see depth. It was great. I was playing Spyro for a while until Gran Turismo. I was always racing,
Yeah.
even from Nintendo days. I always loved racing games, and when I was able to play it in 3D on a console at home, I mean, it's a hands down winner, PlayStation, man. And from there it was 3D games. What was your experience in your first open world 3D game?
But yeah, my first open world game that I experienced was Driver. The first Driver on the PS1 was that blew my mind. I was never really a big driving game fan. I did have one Sega Genesis game for driving, and it was called Erica Senna.
Oh, Ayrton Senna.
Yeah, so I
Yes,
played
Ayrton
Eric and
Senna.
Senna on the Sega Genesis, and that one was kind of cool. But I mean, they weren't really good until you got onto the PlayStation era, I think. But
That's right.
so Driver was my first open world game, and I really played the shit out of that game. I was also playing Need for Speed at the time, and I couldn't stand it because I felt like, why are the cops chasing me? I'm on a freaking track. Why are they chasing people on a track? Isn't a track supposed to be for racing? But when Driver came out, I really loved the concept of an open world game where you're driving around, and mind blowing for the time, right? Because it was so,
It was.
you know.
It was. It was kind of like an action platformer in a car game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what made Driver stand out from most of the arcade style racers or the racing simulators for me.
Yeah.
Because my first kind of 3D racing game in a way was Gran Turismo. When it came out, I was on it like right away. But then when Driver came out, it was a completely different experience. I was playing a game where I can have car damage.
Yeah.
One of the things that was very, very difficult for a lot of these guys that were making racing games because, they didn't have to worry about the physics of it. And I honestly believe that the physics engine in Driver is what set the standard outside of
Oh.
obviously Gran Turismo, set the standard for having proper car
Oh, for
physics
sure.
in a game outside of racing. I mean, it was
Thank
the
you.
collision, the
It
weight.
felt like you were driving in this world, and it felt like there was a
Yep.
weight to it. And That's why when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, I was looking forward to it. Although I wasn't really a big fan of that at the time because it was the Grand Theft Auto was top down. Everything was like, 2D. Grand Theft Auto 3 was coming out. Everyone was talking about it. And I remember going to this video game store and they had it on the TV screen. Everyone was like excited and I bought it. But I took it home and I was like, shit, this is not as good as I thought it was because the cars felt like they were balloons. I felt like I was
Yes.
driving a balloon. And it took me a long time, almost ready to give it back. I almost was thinking the next day, I was thinking like maybe I should ask for my money back. And I'm glad I took my time with it because it took me about a week or two and I really stuck with it. I'm pretty quick to judge video games when I was younger, or if I don't like it, I don't want to play, but I really gave it a chance. And once I got all the cheats, started playing this game and I realized what was so exciting about it wasn't about the driving, it was about things you could do in that open
That's
world.
right.
And it blew my mind and I eventually got into it and really, was like totally forgot about Driver. They kind of started to drop the ball, I felt Driver did when Grand Theft Auto took over, and I felt like they were kind of like trying to compensate.
Trying to play
Yeah,
catch up. Yeah.
catch up, and they were
Yeah.
trying to copy what Grand Theft Auto was doing instead of staying their own entity. And I remember Driver 2 was so disappointing. It looked better. It had some really cool cities. I liked Rio de Janeiro, I think was one. The cars looked really cool.
Totally.
Driver 2 was just really, really disappointing compared to the first one because it was so buggy and lots of times the screen would just pause for a couple of seconds and like that's not a good thing in a driving game. Grand Theft Auto after that took over.
That's true. They pretty much kind of owned the 3D action drama space. I mean, who doesn't want to run around, one, in an open world, two, shoot everything that you possibly can, three, drive and crash cars,
and be a gangster. Be like a bad because Grand Theft Auto had that edge. You weren't playing as a cop.
That's
it was
right.
the first game as you were playing as a bad guy.
Bad guy, glorified villain.
What do you think the impact was for Grand Theft Auto? What it did for the gaming industry and how it affected it moving forward to this day? And I think one of it, well, I'll answer one of the part of the questions, but is that it made it popular for video games to have a villain as a main protagonist.
That is true. GTA definitely did a lot because after GTA came out, games like The Getaway, where you're like the wheelman slash hitman type of game,
London,
and exactly. And there was a few others that kind of came out, and that's truly when Rockstar kind of hit their stride. And from that point on, they couldn't do wrong.
Yes,
they released State of Emergency and all these other ones. I mean, as terrible as that game was,
no.
that game was so bad, but it was a cash cow, and it was what they call residual income for Rockstar because people were going to buy it, right?
Oh, for sure.
One, you get to do and be the craziest things in a world where people want to play where physics matter. You know what I mean? They want to be immersed in the world, and honestly, it stemmed from GTA. A lot of that kind of I don't want to say the violent games and the gun shooting and the mobster bad guy mentality, but those that played GTA really wanted to find other games like it, and other games like The Getaway or games built around that same concept. Be able to drive a car, be able to explore a 3D world with a story-driven platform, and shoot people.
Yep, and they got it. They got a lot of those. So my next question I want to ask is like, what's your favorite open world game? Favorite Grand Theft Auto game?
Okay, favorite open world, San Andreas.
Yeah,
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Third one.
Favorite open world game.
That one took it to another level. That was like
it did.
San Andreas just blew it out of the water.
They did, and they provided something so humongous for people to do that it kept them busy. I mean, they knew what people wanted. They understood that also an open world, especially with a free roam, allows you to really just go and do anything. And you probably waste more hours. I wouldn't be surprised if you were to check that the average gamer who owned, GTA 3, GTA 4, GTA 5, and ask them in which of the 5 games have they spent the most free time just doing stuff. I assure you, San Andreas would be in like the top 3. It's one of those games where it's kind of started the massive world, the spending, like 10, 20 minutes going across, police chase, going through boats, swimming, all the stuff that made the game amazing.
You could actually eat and gain weight.
That's
you
right.
You could go to the gym. You could get buff. You could get skinny. You could get overweight. It was like
shave your head, change your clothes,
it became like an RPG, a very dumbed down RPG, but an RPG nonetheless. It wasn't like so much more advanced than what they did with the first 2. Vice City, everyone loves. I think a lot of people still love it because it was the 80s style. It had that 80s look to it. I really never played that one because I was in Toronto at the time and I didn't have my PS2. I just moved to Toronto in 2002, so I didn't get my PlayStation 2, so I was kind of like missed out on it. And then when San Andreas came out, I was excited. I wanted that. I really wanted that. I was like, I even got like a little tiny TV, a black and white TV. That I clicked my PS2 to it, and I didn't have enough money for an actual TV, so I clicked it to my little tiny little TV that was literally fits in your hand. And I was like, I think I blew it out the screen because I still have it, but I can't use it anymore.
That's
Old
right. Yeah.
school. But I remember playing it on that the first time, and then I was like, finally I got a TV. I was like a real TV. I was like, I can't play on this black and white anymore. But I remember that game was that one really convinced me. Grand Theft Auto was like one of my favorite because there was really no other open world game that I could compare it to. Driver was already like, it was fun, but like there was nothing you could do other than drive around and do a few missions here and there. But they became very repetitive, very fast.
Yes.
San Andreas had a lot of missions that were very varied compared to Grand Theft Auto 3, which was also very repetitive missions. They were pretty much, go somewhere, kill the guy, press a switch, and drive back. The missions were not, how do we say, or
Diverse. No.
engaging, And
No, they were.
and that's why I didn't like Grand Theft Auto 4 on the PS3. I didn't like it. I know you liked it.
Really?
Because it was almost like a step back. You could eat, but there was couldn't gain weight. You couldn't do weights. I felt like it was almost
Yeah, there was no simulation to it.
I
Yeah.
felt like it was a step back. But yeah, with Grand Theft Auto 4, I really never really got into it. I think at the time when I played that game, I felt the cousin was annoying. I did not like him, and I just felt the story was still kind of cartoony and a little bit felt like still like a PS2 game. I was playing Red Dead at the time, so I was getting more into like games that were more mature, and I loved Red Dead Redemption because of the maturity of that game. And so I
Yeah.
really, when that game came out, I couldn't play Grand Theft Auto 4. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a terrible game. I just did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would enjoy it. It's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, what got me back into Grand Theft Auto was Grand Theft Auto 5. That one blew my mind because I still feel that game looks like a PS4 game even on the PS3. It was
That's right.
because Grand Theft Auto was never about graphics. Because you know why? It was an open world. You can't have amazing graphics in this game because it's such a huge open world. There's so many things you could do. But with Grand Theft Auto 5, it was the one time where I actually felt that it was on par with every other driving game. And I was like, how the freak did they do that? How the fuck did they do and make it look as good as a game that's not a open world game and still make the graphics look? I was impressed. The graphics are, and they put it on the PS4. They remastered it obviously a couple of years back, and it still looks to me almost as good as any PS4 game.
That is true.
I would say almost, not quite. It still looks amazing.
It does, and it's one of the games that they realize that they've done so much work where they've taken like the San Andreas scale of an open world, jammed, like you said, jammed like a high-end racing car and detailed graphics and characters, still gave you the fun adventures, lots of things that you can interact with, and the simulation. It has everything. Grand Theft Auto 5 was the culmination of everything GTA has been doing and everything that technology is allowing them to do to that point. Truly and honestly amazing. Back to kind of where I was finishing, we were talking about what do you think, your favorite GTA game is. Favorite open world one obviously was San Andreas, but yeah, my favorite GTA game is 4, Nico Bellic. I was a fan of the story, and I think that he was just kind of this character that was a lot different than what we were normally used to, at least in the Grand Theft Auto world, where guys were, kind of willing and able to do, where he was kind of the reluctant hero, like ultimately and truly. Didn't want to get into this, wanted to try and keep it straight, and this whole chaotic world around him just, kind of pushing him in ways where he's got to respond. And yes, I know you didn't like his cousin. What's it, Roman? I think his cousin's name
I don't want to know
Roman.
his name. I just couldn't stand the guy. But I should have given it a better chance. I mean, I've never passed a Grand Theft Auto game except 5. 5 was the only Grand Theft Auto game I ever actually completed from start to finish, and that tells you how involved I was in 5. But I mean, part of me would play 4 if they remastered it and put it on the PS4, or maybe if the PS5 has backwards compatible with the PS3. I might.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, I know that they're gonna go. It's gonna be backwards compatible with 4. I know that for sure. I just don't know if it's gonna go back to 3. I would like if they do. Be nice.
It would be nice.
Because then there's so many PS3 games that were so good that I would love to play again. I'm just excited to see Grand Theft Auto 6. What they could do on the PS5, because it's going to come out for PS5. It might come out for PS4 as well.
Easily.
I hope it's a PS5 game. I'm going to be amazed what they're going to do. It's scary. One generation up, and look at the difference. Insane. I still can't believe it. I mean, it's playing San Andreas. I mean, graphically it's dated because it's a PS2 game. If you look at that game, and then if you look at 5 to 3, compared to 3, it's incredible. incredible because this game still looks good on the PS4 and it holds its own. Imagine what they could
That's
do on
true.
the PS5. And this is two
That is
two
true.
two generations past three. So I just can't wait for six because I mean it's gonna be off the hook. Who knows what else you could do? I hope we can go to every single store and buy stuff. Not just
Oh, the
yeah,
stores,
like buy
yes.
everything, make it realistic. Go to a restaurant, actually, pick anything on the menu.
Or buy something from a vending machine
Well,
type of
that's
thing,
that's
right?
been
Like that
done
one.
with Yakuza, obviously, but thinking like so detailed you could like brush your teeth. I mean, at this point, I
Uh,
mean that might get too simulation, but at one point, gotta be, is this exciting? Do I really want to brush teeth in a video game? But I like realism in video games. I like video games that are realistic. I could talk about video games forever.
I know you can.
It went by so fast. It literally felt like 2 minutes, and it was actually way more than 2 minutes. So thanks for joining me, CK. Once again, it was nice to have you.
Thank you for having me. It was nice to be able to talk about video games, especially ones I enjoy. I'm glad that we both really enjoyed Driver and kind of how it brought driving simulation and action gaming together, kind of your world and my world. We had something in common.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Thanks for having me, RL. I guess I'll talk to you later.
It was always nice to have you, CK. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun with CK. Leave a comment below. Let me know what your favorite open world game is. And I will have more videos for you in the weeks, months, and years to come. Bye for now.